do with the sin and being forgiven.
Right.
And so when people say, well, that's what you have to do, I go, well, I didn't, and he did, you know? He engaged with me.
That's so good.
And started this whole thing. And it didn't have anything to do with forgiveness of sin.
Right. Right.
It had to do with, I need someone in my life. Yeah.
That's so good.
Because I'm broken, because my dad was killed. You know, you just have this hole in your heart. You're not thinking about how bad you are. You're thinking about how bad you feel.
Interesting.
And you want that peace in your heart. So, yeah.
That's great. Anyone else?
Thanks, Greg. So there's things that I've experienced and then things that I've been taught and then things that I have been around culturally that didn't really affect me, but I heard of them. So the thing that I was taught was that in order to get to heaven, to be with the Lord after you die, you need to have that salvation moment, that forgiveness. Ask the Lord of your forgiveness. So you need to initiate it, or you don't get into heaven, which we've talked about. So, and then the thing that was like so culturally around me that I don't know if it was necessarily taught, but it was definitely just viewed as this is how it is that forgiveness is a continual thing. Kind of like Heather was like, you have to continue to go in and ask for forgiveness. And it's like this never-ending process of, I feel horrible, I am horrible, and I need the Lord to hear my horribleness so that I can get to heaven. That's how it felt. But in reality, it was basically just a box to check. Like, you're at church camp, and this is what they tell you to do because, like, this is the correct thing to do. Like, it had nothing to do with, I don't know, like, my spirit necessarily, but it was just like, here's this preset words that you recited, and you actually like put your name and your parents' name, and so that they can talk to you later about it. So it didn't seem like a big event. It just seemed like a task to complete. So,
a mental activity, a mental event. So I want to take a second and just honor all the people who shaped the belief system that we had or have. And all the people who, out of a desire to love and help others, taught us the best they knew. So all of these traditions, whether they were beautiful and helpful and beneficial, or we now look at them and say, maybe that wasn't the best idea, all of the people involved in it, I would say, were attempting to help. And we can honor our own journey by not judging it and shoving it away, but by going, this was my experience, and I honor this, and I honor this, and may all of it bring life. Because the heart of God is in all of it. There are people who have experienced beautiful things in confession. There are people who have experienced beautiful things in this theology. Life-giving, real, good, wonderful things. And it's true of almost every teaching where the Lord is somewhere in that space meeting us. So in doing this, I want to make sure that I'm not communicating a poo-poo on anyone. Now, you're all allowed to be mad at whoever you want to be, but I just want to make sure that I'm being clear that we have histories and stories that we may now wish had been different, or go, you know what it was, but I no longer believe that, but it led me to believe this about God, and I'm now on a different path. But I don't have to throw it all away, and I don't have to abhor it. I don't have to hate it. I can honor it. Honor the journey, honor the story, honor the people who were a part of it. Because at the core of every really bad teaching, I believe, is actual genuine revelation. There's a genuine revelation somewhere in there, and then people think about it, and think about it some more, and it goes into somewhere else. And so I realized I myself, I just want to put that on the table, that I want to honor the stories that have gone before us and the hearts and the lives and the people. Okay, so here's the challenges that I had, and I'm just going to tell a tiny bit of my story with this story. This is atonement theology. I don't know what percentage of Christianity believes in atonement theology. You could probably look it up and Google it now that we have unbelievable internet stuff and people keep stats and you can publish it anywhere. Do you know, Dan? You would know a lot of this stuff, but maybe not. What percentage of Christianity believes in atonement theology? It's basically the theology that humanity is sinful, God can't be around sin, so we need an atonement. Something needs to pay the price for that. The original was the sheep, considered in the Jewish culture, and then Christ became the next atonement, and that's an atonement theology. But not all of Christianity believes in atonement theology. Do you know how much? I don't know either. Okay, so that's atonement theology. It's kind of what we're describing is atonement theology, which, by the way, not all of Christianity buys into. So we all have different stories and different histories and different theologies, but here's the journey that I came into with the Lord. Was as I was spending more and more time with him, he was trying to utterly convince me that sin doesn't separate us at all. And the way he did it was he said, you have this issue, you have a food addiction that you keep struggling with and you can't seem to get out of, and I'm going to convince you that I'm right smack in the middle of it. And so no matter where you are in the midst of that food addiction, I'm going to be present in it. And anytime you want to know if I'm present in it, you just turn to me and I'll talk to you while you're in the middle of this food addiction. And I was like, yeah, that's not how that works, right? Because you can't tolerate it. And he's like, are you kidding me? You don't even know what's messed up in your life. Like, you think you have it cleaned up, like, really? He goes, you don't even know what you don't know. And you think that I'm only present when you've got it figured out? What kind of a God would that be? And I'm like, yeah, kind of a pretty petty God. But it never occurred to me, right? And he goes, I am going to utterly convince you that there is nothing, not one thing, that separates presence. He goes, the only thing that sin, meaning not being your true self, does is it separates your perception of our closeness, but not our actual closeness. And then I started meeting all kinds of people where I could hear the Lord talking to me about them, and he's like, oh, I love this about them, and you know what, I love this about them. They didn't believe him at all, didn't know that they knew him at all, and he's telling me intimately, like, about who they are. Not intimate details, but like about him knowing them intimately. And then I'd ask questions, because I'm dying to know if it's right, because right, I'm having a relationship with wisdom, right? This spirit of wisdom, I'm having conversations. So I would start asking questions of people and asking them, like, I'm sensing this, is that true? And they'd be like, yes, that's true. And I'm like, okay, so this God knows this person who doesn't like God. And he's like, yeah, I dwell here. I dwell here. I dwell in all of humanity. I dwell here because relationship is based not on a cross and an event that happened in history. Relationship was based on intention. When he said, let us make humanity in our image, he made a decision, I want to dwell with humanity, no matter what the outcome. And our relationship wasn't based on a mental activity in our lives. It wasn't based on an event in history. Our relationship was based on God's desire. But our perception of that relationship is our free choice. So he goes, I'm here. I am the energy that makes all of these molecules actually live. I'm the one who holds all of matter together. Whether you want to relate to me or not, that's the choice that you get to engage in. And I said, okay, so if relationship is not based on an event, the cross, then what was the point of the cross? Because I thought that it was about forgiveness. Now, what did we say forgiveness is at the heart of it? Release? Yeah. Sorry, I'm writing. I'll give it back to you. No, I won't. Yes, I will. Right here. Release. What if the point of Christ was to introduce us to our true selves so that we were released from sin, not that we needed acceptance and relationship. What if the point of the cross was to release us from sin, from ourselves, not in his mind? Because I'm trying to figure out, why do I need to ask for forgiveness, meaning I'm sorry I did something wrong, to a person who knows the only reason I did any of those things was because I got hurt in the first place. Anytime I'm acting outside my true self is because of woundedness. So do you take a kid who's been beat up by a bully and tell them, now you need to ask forgiveness for everyone else because you're acting out from the wounds that this bully perpetrated on you? No, you go, we got to deal with this issue over here with the bully, right? We look at the real issue, or hopefully we do. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, a kid gets hit a couple of times on the playground. Shouldn't happen. Someone should be there to protect him. It's an injustice. The kid walks in the room and jostles someone else and kicks over a table. Why? Because now, is he going to go ask God for forgiveness? Like, how weird would that be? Except for that's what this is. I'm going to go ask a giant loving God who loves me very, very much to forgive me for operating out of the very pain that I have experienced, that he allowed me to experience in this fallen world. Right? So if it's not that, if I'm asking for forgiveness, and forgiveness is not a I'm sorry for what I did, forgiveness is I'm asking for release from the pain and the effect of the harm that has come upon me. Did you catch that? I'm asking for release of the pain and the harm that has come upon me, that is manifesting in my life and trying to convince me I'm different than I truly am, trying to convince me I'm not good, trying to convince me I have no joy, trying to convince me I have no peace. We're asking for release. Forgive me, meaning release me from the effects of the pain. Release me from the guilt. What? I mean, right? Isn't that so good? Like, we've been talking about this a long time, you know, bits and pieces, and we have. But, so, any comments? And I'm moving on. It's huge? Is that what you said? So what was the point of the cross? Let's flip the board. You have the thing. What was the point? What?
The point of the cross would be released. It would be recognizing. It's just so weird.
Hang on. She needs a microphone.
When we started this, all the questions that were previously asked, I had written down that what God's forgiveness was all about for me was that it allowed me to forgive myself. Because if God could forgive me, then I would be willing and able to somehow forgive myself. And so I was just thinking about, why is it that, you know, we live with this inability to forgive ourselves? It has to do with this thing that you're just describing.
Because an inability to forgive yourself is the inability to recognize the reality that you're in, which is, I am acting this way and behaving this way because of the pain that I have experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway,
And so
I think
going,
I've
I
lost.
need to be released of that so I
Right.
can be my true self. That's what I need. I don't need to perform myself into it. I don't need to muscle my way into it. When I'm yelling and I can't stop myself, it's not, oh, bad me. It's what pain am I experiencing that I need to be released from so that I am free to be my true self. The other is performance and super hard, and we've all gone that road. But being released from the pain causes us to spring into the freedom of being our true selves. And that's why Paul was like, it is glory to glory that I experience. He is going from release to release. See, it's not hard getting free. We've all been taught at some point or another, like, write the phrase, no pain, no gain. But I'm going to tell you BS. Because it's not hard to get free. It's hard to stay not free. That's what's hard. It's not hard to be released. That's super, super easy. It's hard staying under the things that try to bind and hold us and convince us that we're someone different than we truly are. Okay, go ahead and say what you're going to say.
No, well, the point the question you just asked was, what was the point of the cross? Mm-hmm. And for me, every time I think about the point of the cross, it brings me to Ephesians, where it says that through the cross because of the cross, all the separations were ended, all the separations from, Gentiles and Jews and separations. It's like all of those separations were now gone. And so it just, I don't know, when you have that place, I don't think I have the words to describe it, but the separations are that place that we live in because of the pain, right? And that tells me that I can't be in relationship with another human or with God or with myself or with, the world at large because of this pain that I live with. Mm-hmm. But the cross actually got rid of all of the separations. It says, because of the cross, we have one new man. Mm-hmm. So, thus making peace, right? So yes. That's the verses in Ephesians. And so anyway, that's what just strikes me is like, that's what it does, is it gets rid of the separations.
It gets rid of the separations. Yeah. Allows for wholeness and connectedness within ourselves and between ourselves with others. But let's go one step further. And we'll talk about this a little bit next week because we're wrapping up this series for real next week, as far as I know. Let me propose this as well. I think the cross, I'm going to go on record.